Hello and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco. Good afternoon or good morning for you.
What's up, Pete? Yeah, it's morning time here. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, especially in the U.S. right now, Thanksgiving week. I want to express gratitude to you for having me on here to allow me to share.
Listen, thank you. I mean, it's always great, and it's great to stretch across the pond and share ideas. So, Mike, tell us, who are you? What are you doing? Where are you from?
My name is Mike C-Roc, as you said, and I am basically a proactive resiliency coach. I don't teach people how to get through things, recover from things, necessarily just survive things. I teach people when they have a setback, a letdown, or difficulty, how to explode out of it using rocket fuel conversion. And the concept of rocket fuel all comes down to the fact that I went through a lot of setbacks in my life and I didn't like the way it felt. And I didn't like being stuck in them. So what I did was I looked over my life and how I progressed through my life and had success, and was all about turning setbacks into rocket fuel and propelling out of them. And so, that's what I'm all about, man. I do a lot of things, but that's what it comes down to.
Oh, cool. I look forward. This is going to be great. I'm looking forward to this. So before we get into it, I mean, what does Fire in the Belly mean to you?
Well, I just explained the rocket fuel concept. That's what it's, to me, all about. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, understanding proactively the concept of being unstoppable and indestructible. And you see, the only thing that can stop you and the only thing that can destroy you, besides life, it's just the fact of going through life itself and aging, besides that, is the discouraging people. It's the setbacks, the letdowns, the difficulties, the negative mindset. It's not the encouraging people. It's not the wins you have and the successes that stop you. It's the other stuff. And if you can find a way not to eliminate those things, but actually convert them into rocket fuel, store them in your tank instead of your trunk, like I say, you become unstoppable and indestructible. And that's what it's all about to me, brother.
That is so powerful. I mean, the stuff, the energy, the negative stuff in your past, and we all have a past, right? Different levels, shapes, forms, whatever it is, but you're inverting that energy and taking negative, not only just getting okay with it, you're actually using it and changing the charge of that and allowing you to propel yourself up, right?
Absolutely, man. Not just a little bit. Like, my aim is to go into outer space. Symbolically, I'm not talking about just getting up in the air somewhere. We're going out of space away from gravity. See, gravity is all the things that pull us down, all the negative suppressors and people and things. And I don't want to be around that, man. I want to be in a place where I pick my problems. I do want to solve problems. I do want to continue to have problems. It's important to have that for your purpose. But I want to choose the problems I solve. I don't want to have people throwing things at me, and it's all about the life that you want to live. If you're not intentional with this, then what happens is other people decide the life that you live. And I'm not okay with that. And I'm not okay for other people to be that way. So that's why I try to get this message out to millions and millions of people so that I can share this with them so that they can live the right life that they want to live.
And talking about that then, I mean, do you plan yourself and your way forward? Are you clear in your intention at all times?
So nobody's at all times, let's face it. If I said yes, I'd be lying to you. And that's why it takes work. And that's why it's important to have a coach or mentor and understand that you have a process and a routine that you need to kind of stick to and try to develop some kind of consistency with. And so no, not all the time, but I for the majority of the time, and my intention is to have purposeful intentions. And so that's when I have the most success and I impact the most amount of people. So yes, I mean, step number one is getting clear on what you want. Like, in a perfect world, no limitations at all. Don't worry about what's possible, what you can do, what you can't do. If you have the answers, how to do it, you can't worry about any of that. First and foremost is getting the clear picture of the perfect life that you want to live. You don't have to be realistic, because realistic is only things that you already know about and or seen. And you've heard the expression, man, I gotta see it to believe it. Right? Well, that limits you. And that's such a limiting mindset. So what I like to do, and I've been taught by my mentors, is to believe it before you see it. No matter what it is. Don't worry about that nobody's ever seen it before or anything. It's whatever you can imagine. If you remember being a kid, you imagined some crazy things. We had imaginary friends, imaginary games. We pretended we were in different places. We pretended we were at war sometimes, or playing on a baseball field or a soccer football field. And we did whatever we wanted. We didn't worry about what the limitations were. And that's what I want to live my life like. And that's what I want to help other people live their life like.
I love that clarity of intention. And I mean, how far forward do you plan then? I mean, is it time based, or is it vision based, or goal based? How do you look forward then?
See, to me, I know time is something that we all get together on and try to agree on so we can be at the same place at the same time when we need to. But to me, time is such a artificial thing. It's a man-made thing. So really, at the end of the day, I just have a mental picture of what I want to do, what I want to become, and as long as I'm going towards that in some fashion, then that's okay. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not ever impatient and I don't have urgency and I want to get there faster. I'm always trying to move faster. And what I do with this, Pete, is I try to accomplish as much as I can in short increments of time. I try to jam as much in these little windows of time as I can. And as long as I'm always moving and going after something that is part of my clear intentional purpose, I'm good with it.
That makes a lot of sense. And for you, I mean, are you pleasure based? Are you towards? Or are you away from focused? I mean, what's your biggest fuel?
So pleasure. So let's talk about pleasure for a second. Pleasure from drinking a beer and doing drugs, that instantaneous pleasure is not what I'm after. I've done that before. I went through my, probably from 18 to about 25 through a period, 7 years of my life that I felt like I wasted without intentions and purpose and chasing that quick pleasure. And that quick pleasure gets you in destructive mode. So I'm pleasure based. Yes. Pleasure for long-term pleasure, the good kind of pleasure, not the kind that destroys you. And so, and it's the same thing with pain, Pete. The pain that you go through when you're working out and lifting weights, and that pain that you feel and burn is different from the pain when you cut yourself. And that's the kind of pain that I'm after. So, and the kind of pain I want to avoid is the kind that hurts you. Okay. So these are things that people say a lot of times, but they don't just differentiate the types that they're talking about. And so, yes, it's definitely pleasure based. It's definitely using the pain that's good pain. And it's also getting away from and avoiding the bad pleasures and the bad pain.
That's great. I mean, yeah, as you say, understanding that. I mean, what's your method of learning here? I mean, are you an immersion type of a guy? Do you learn by doing? Do you like to try and fail? What's your preferred method?
So I'll tell you a story. I came from a broken home. I don't really remember my parents together. And I went through a lot of child support, custody battles, all that stuff that my parents had, new step parents coming into the mix, jealousy. And a lot of it was taken and passed down onto the kids and taken out on us. And, a lot of thoughts went through my head where, am I the cause of this? Like what kind of involvement do I have with this? What kind of responsibility do I have with this? And it was a bad place to be as a child, but it's made me who I am. And it's made me as stubborn as I am, probably in a good way. And then it's also comes with some bad things. But the reason I tell you that story is that when I was about 11 years old, I lived with my dad for 3 years, and my mom had noticed that I was stressed out and anxious every time she would drop me back off. And the reason was I was dealing with a lot of emotional and traumatic psychological abuse. And I decided to tell my mom at some point that I didn't care what the results were. I wasn't, the ramifications were for telling her this. I needed to get out of this. And I told her what was going on. And so I was immersed at a young age, learning some very tough lessons of how not to act, how not to be, how to react the right way to things and treat people the right way. So I think that speaking of immersion, I think that's what I do, man. I learn from immersion and being like totally obsessed with what I want to learn and who I want to be. So for example, with this, my dad basically at that age, when he found out that I was going to move in with my mom and he got served court papers, he basically gave up on me in the fact that he was my hero. I looked up to him. I learned a lot from him. He was a mason. He had his own business. He had rough hands and big forearms. And I always looked up to him for being a hard worker. And he always had a wad of $100 bills in his pocket. And I looked up to him for that. And he had a rubber band around it and he would flash it and we would do things with it, the money. And I liked that, man. I thought that was cool. So when he found out that I wanted to leave, he confirmed it with me. And then he took that wad of $100 bills out of his pocket and said, okay, that's the case. And he peels a $100 bill off, crumples it up and throws it at me and says, here, you're going to need this when you're living on the streets with your mother one day. So at that moment, I thought to myself, no, you're not going to determine my life. You're not going to determine the story that I'm going to write. In a way, it's kind of ironic because I'm writing a book about that same story. But I also thought in my mind that there's other people that are going through this, and I'm going to be somehow I'm going to show them that you can go through something like this, because I thought it was an ordinary life. I didn't know any different. I'm going to show you other people that go through this, how you can become great from something like this. And I thought this at a young age, which is crazy, because I think my mom beat into my head that I'm a leader. She always used to tell me, man, you're a leader. Like, you're going to inspire people. And she did this before I ever did it. I think that's the case of believing it before you see it, which I referred to earlier. I think my mom did that to me at a young age. So to me, to answer your question, I know that was a long roundabout question, but I just want people to understand where I'm coming from. For me, it's immersion. And when I met Grant Cardone, I don't know if you're familiar with Grant Cardone, who's a big mentor in my life right now. He came in at the right time, because my dad, when my dad basically threw in the towel on me, my stepfather, George, who was a great guy, he stepped in at the right time when I was 11, right when I was getting ready to go through puberty, a lot of changes as a young man. And January 2019, George passed away from a heart attack. And George was my mentor at that time. And when he passed, I wasn't ready to give up a mentor. I wanted to mentor people, and I was already mentoring, but I wasn't ready to give up a mentor. And Grant Cardone came in my life at that moment. I read the 10X rule. My brother was reading it. My brother Casey was reading it. And he said, man, you got to read this book, Mike. You got to read this book. It sounds just like you. So I read the book, and I'm like, holy cow, this guy's talking to me. I can relate to this guy. This guy's allowing me and give me validation to let the animal out inside that I have inside of me. And so when I did realize that, again, this goes back to your question, I started immersing myself in Grant's content from afar. I didn't even know who Grant was personally. I just started reading his stuff, watching his stuff, getting obsessed with learning it. My wife said that Grant lived in our house for a period of time because I had him on all the time, and I'd talk about it all the time. And, so that was the biggest way. And I can pretty much tell you everything that Grant's taught now, because I've watched probably close to 3,000 of his videos on Cardone University. I mean, this isn't a plug for Grant. I just want to let you know, one, it's been a big impact in my life, but how I learned. And then what I've done eventually now is I've turned it into my story and how I've implemented it and turned it into Rocket Fuel and the What Are You Made Of podcast. And it's just become such this isn't very masculine, but a blossoming flower, like a butterfly coming out of its cocoon, man. It's a cool process. So I hope I answered your question.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's loads there. Take us back. I mean, Mini Mike, what were we looking at there? I mean, what sort of a kid were you?
I was very energetic. As a kid, I was the first grandkid on both sides of my family. So that was pretty cool, because I think it was a lot of support and encouragement from extended family, and the novelty of that wears off as other kids come into the family. But at first, I mean, everybody, Mikey. That was all. I remember just being like such a loved kid and not held on a pedestal, but like really revered as being the first grandchild in the family. And I think a lot of people, I noticed throughout my life as I go through, we're talking about this. I don't think I really talked about this before, but I think that I noticed some people in the family having issues with the treatment that I got from some other parts of the family. And so that jealousy came at a young age, where similar to where you try to advance yourself in life, or you have successes, or you're trying to change your life and people hate on you and they try to bring you back down. And I think I've experienced that at a young age. And so, at a young age, I had a lot of questions in my mind, like, why are people acting like this? Like, what's going on here? And I felt alone a lot of times because of it. And so, but with the fact that my dad, I felt like he threw in the towel on me, whether he did or not. I felt like that. I don't have a relationship with him now. Unfortunately, it's not by my choosing. I always felt like his eyes were on me and I got to prove him wrong. And so from that point, from 11 on, I've always been trying to just be the greatest that I can at everything I do. Barring one little window of 7 years of my life where I chased women and drugs and girls alcohol and did some dumb shit, and that wasn't me, by the way. I really know that wasn't who I am, but I just wrote about that part of my book, and I got a book, Rocket Fuel, that's coming out in February, and I was kind of embarrassed to write that and share that with people, and I really haven't shared it on a podcast yet until today. Actually, you get an exclusive part of it, and I'm not really excited to tell that part about it, except that it hopefully just helps somebody that might be going through that.
Do you know why?
Why I didn't share it? or
why you went through it, or why
yeah,
did you go
definitely
there?
100%. Well, until I was 18, I didn't drink a beer. I didn't have any alcohol. I was so focused, and I was playing American football, went to college, played football, and I was just so dedicated on being a football player. And I think what happened, I think I was doing good in high school, but I came from a really small school, and I wasn't the greatest athlete in the world. And when I got to college, my eyes were opened up to all these other players and all these other athletes that were huge. And my dreams of being a football player that I had since I was a little kid were kind of crushed in a way, because I'm 5'6" and 3/4. I'm not a big dude. I'm wide, like muscle wide, but not tall. And I wasn't the fastest. And so I kind of got lost maybe, and I lost my intentional purpose of what I'm trying to accomplish. And then when you do that, other people start dictating what you do with your life, and you're open and susceptible to have a drink. Then you get that feeling, that instantaneous pleasure feeling from drinking. And then that's not good enough. And then it's marijuana, and then marijuana is not good enough. And that's cocaine or different, whatever. And it's like, it leads down a destructive, deadly, a lot of times, path. But not only for me, I made it out. Thank God to my wife that I met. I didn't need rehab or anything. I met my wife and I got committed again. My purpose came clear. But I wasted a lot of time in my life. And I'm sure the people around me at that time, necessarily, I probably didn't treat the best, I'm sure. But more importantly, man, what kind of freaking role model or inspiration was I being to the people around me? An encourager and an enabler of bad decisions. And that's what bothers me the most. But so now I turn and convert that part into fuel, which makes me go harder and faster now, because I know that I have some things to make up for. So
Do you think is that a pleaser? I mean, what void was there, or what value was there? How was it serving you at that time?
What, by like just partying and things?
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. And when I got there, it felt like a playground. Like I was like, how was I missing out on all this stuff? And I knew I grew up around a lot of broken people, a lot of alcohol, drug addicts, in my family, and mentally, not mentally challenged, but mental issues with people. And I knew what was right and what was wrong. But when I was 18, for some reason, man, going wrong felt so right. I don't know how to explain it, man. And it was like a freeing feeling, man. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do by any means. And the reason I had a little bit of problem with sharing this on podcasts in the past and in my book is I don't want young people to see that and think it's okay to try it and you'll make it out. That's not the message here. Because it's destructive. It'll ruin your family. It'll ruin relationships, your finances, your health. And it also will cause delays in what you're trying to really accomplish in life. And so I think that that feeling though that I had was, it just was so freeing, and I was meeting new people, and like I really didn't, I had girlfriends in high school, but I didn't really chase girls and then have them chasing me, and it was just a weird thing. And I think that those things are fun for a short time until it's too late and you don't realize it. And then, to me, then I was going to pubs and bars thinking that that's the only way to connect with people. And if I sat home, I felt like I was missing out, and I didn't have connection with anyone and purpose. And it was a dark time in my life at the end of it. And then that's when my wife came into my life. Jen, I've been married almost 18 years, and thank God she came at the right time. And I think that I was just starting to feel like in my head, I need something else. And so what you start focusing on, and you start asking those right questions, and you start saying those right things to yourself, then you start seeing the right answers. So
what was your original plan then? What was Mike going to do when he grew up?
Well, I wanted to be a football player. And if that didn't work, I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, because I love football. And I was like, man, I could be in the booth and calling football games and all that. And for a period of time in high school, I was doing the morning and afternoon announcements at the high school. And I think I announced some football games that I wasn't playing in, maybe some peewee games or whatever the case was. And then I went to school, and I didn't do communications. I did business, and I dropped out. Once I got into maybe 2.5 years, I was 4.0 student somehow. I don't know how I did, but I dropped out. And part of me was I wasn't engaged, and I was done being told how to do things by people that didn't do it in their own lives. And also I was just disengaged and unfocused. And so I went into the restaurant business, and that lasted for a period of time. And then I got into sales, which changed everything.
Why sales?
Well, I was in a restaurant business, and I was like going crazy in this Italian restaurant one night. It was busy. And I had this guy that kept coming in. His name was Joe, who ended up being a business mentor of mine. And he kept coming in. He was so cool. I loved his family and this and that. And then eventually he asked me one day, he's like, man, you'd be good at what I do. Why don't you come by the shop? And I think I was starting to get burnt out from the restaurant business. I said, what the heck? So I stopped by and I just saw the people were making more money than I was making. I saw what they were doing and I was just intrigued by it. And it was an in-home sales business where you'd go to appointments and sell a product. And then I started being challenged by it and started trying to get good at it. But I was held back because I was still partying. I was working and my friends were still in college that I had there. And I was going to work. When I wasn't working, I was partying with my friends. And so I wasn't focused and didn't give it my all. And, but that's how I got into sales.
Wow. Do you remember your first sale?
Yes, I do actually. I was in a home in Georgetown, Delaware. It was behind a McDonald's. I remember exactly where it was. And it was an old couple. And first, before you learn to go out on your own, you would go with other people and watch ride-alongs, we would call them. And I remember seeing people sell, and I'm like, man, I could do that. But I went out a few times, and I would do a demonstration, and I just didn't get the sale, and I just had no confidence, of course. And I would get a demonstration, and if people wouldn't, and I'd be, all right, okay. And then I would try some of the closes and objection handling things, and just didn't work. But then finally, somebody said yes. And I was like, wow, holy cow, wait a minute. Are you sure you want to do that? You know, I almost tried to talk him out of it. And it was a great feeling, man. And then when I got out of there, I was so happy. But the problem, Pete, was when I was celebrated after that, and I started having more and more sales, the celebration was drinking. The celebration was calling my buddies that were in college. Hey, man, I made a sale. I made some money before I got the money, before it was finalized. And I would go out and pick up the bar tab on a credit card. And celebrate every time. And sometimes I would come in the next day and the people would cancel. And what a depressing feeling that was when you were already hungover and had already celebrated the sale that never happened, actually. So, yeah, I remember that. And man, I just, you know, I want to really try to impact people that are going through things at 17, 18, and teach them, like, listen, man, the girls can wait. Because listen, you're chasing girls right now, but if you focus on going after what you want in life, money, the finances, I'm not talking about just being greedy and going after money, but the finances, setting your finances up right, and the career that you want. If you do that first and commit to it, the women will chase you. And this might not come off the right way. So I know I'm just rolling with this here, but it's true. You chase women early on in life. What happens is that you go down the wrong path. And then the selection's not as good. This might go all the wrong way, but I'm just being real with you here. But when you get your stuff straight and you have a good head on your shoulders and your finances are right and you're solid and firm in a foundation, you will have a better selection of spouse. Let's put it that way. I'm not talking about one night stands. I'm talking about looking for your partner. You'll have a better selection of the right person that's going to be thinking the same way as you, that is on the same track as you and is aligned with your lifetime goals. That's what I mean by that. So don't take that the wrong way.
No, it makes sense. I mean, but you know, and that is sort of feeding from a place of abundance, as opposed to just going, yeah, I've got enough, you know, we can stop now. But you know, the more you learn, the more you gain, the more money you have, the more, you know, the better your experience is, the more you can invest and so forth, right? You know, you can just blow it all up for that point, but you got to stay focused.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're not focused, you're blurry, right? That's the opposite of focus, blurry or unfocused. I like the word blurry, though, because that's what you feel like when you're not focused, when you're not waking up and knowing what you're going to do that day. And we all go through it, guys. Like sometimes I have my days. I'm pretty good at knowing what I got to do because I live by my calendar, Pete. You know, I love, like, you can tell a lot by a guy by what his calendar looks like. And if you saw my calendar over the last 2 days, I like to focus on my diet and make sure I eat right. But man, I didn't have time to eat. So luckily my wife would come down to my cave here and she would put food on my desk and I would eat real quick in between. But I had no space in my calendar whatsoever. It was back to back to back all throughout the day. And so even if I didn't know what I wanted to do that day, I knew what I had to do because I already filled my calendar. And that's done with intention and preparation ahead of time and being proactive about making sure that if you're not feeling great that day, you did the work ahead of time to make sure your calendar was full. And so if you don't live by your calendar, you cannot tell me you're living with intention and purpose.
What caused the shift? I mean, you talk about going from the sports commentating and the sports themselves, but to business. What caused that sort of that pivot?
I think that for some reason at that point in my life, when I went into college, the college I went to, do you ever heard of Frank Purdue, the chicken man?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Purdue chicken. He went to that college. He was from that area, and he started the Purdue School of Business. And for some reason, that intrigued me. I've always been intrigued, Pete, by people that have made it, that are successful, celebrities, sports people, business people. For some reason, that has always intrigued me. And I feel like maybe that's because I'm on that journey and I want to be there in some way, shape, or form. I want to be a celebrity in my space that people look to, and not for my own achievement. It's more about like making people feel a certain way. Does that make sense? I really get off on making people feel good and hopeful and inspired and feel like they could run through a wall. And so I think that I saw that with Frank Purdue School of Business, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, that's Frank's Purdue School of Business, man. If he learned what he did there or something, maybe I can. And so I think that's what caught me up. And I didn't think being a sports broadcaster was big enough for me, maybe. So it wasn't a big enough game that I wanted to play.
That's interesting. Obviously having that, and you talk about your stepdad having a big influence. I mean, what particular traits did he bring in that sort of made a difference for you?
So George was the kind of guy. George wasn't the best with getting money. He was the best at stretching money and still being happy and living a life. He loved to hunt and fish and go to sporting events and talk about sports and read books. And he was able to do everything he wanted to do in life, making very little money. And so I watched that. But I also realized in my head, you need money. Because really, like, George helped a lot of people and impacted a lot of people. Everybody loved George, but he wasn't able to help people monetarily. Or he might have been able to, he didn't really grasp the concept that he could do way more with what he did if he had money. So money's like a tool, right? Or fuel. But what George was good at was black and white, telling me, you do good, good things happen. You do bad, bad things happen. And then he would be hard on us, not physically, but hard on us. He had a deep voice. So when he felt passionate about something, he would let you know about it. And the other thing is, he was also quiet. Like if you go to a room and he didn't know anybody, he would kind of be quiet until you got him on a topic of sports, hunting, fishing, something he was passionate about. He would jump off that couch, get up in your face and interact with you, but real deep. And sometimes people would be taken aback by it. So that passion right there is something that I think I got from him and saw how important that passion was. And so your question, Pete, about George.
Yeah.
And what was basically the impact that he had in my life?
Yeah, just really how you managed to take you through that stage, and really the influence that he had and your decision. Because you talked about him there being quite, well, is it frugal with money? Is that a fair thing? But he also empowering at the same time.
I don't think he knew how to go get money, or maybe he just didn't have the want to go get money. And so, because of that, he needed to be good with money. He needed to figure out ways to be tight with money. And he was really good with budgeting, and I'm not a fan of that, but that's what he was able to do. And I know that I can do that if I need to. I can, manage cash flow. And, but at the end of the day, that's not what I want. And that's okay. I got other things from him, which I mentioned already, but passion and right from wrong, very clear, right from wrong, do good things happen, do bad things happen. And that's the main things that I feel like I got from him. And he was always dependable too, by the way. Dependable and reliable, I would throw in there as well.
It almost comes across like, it's like rich dad, poor dad type thing, it's almost that thing where maybe not, sort of, as you say, not wealthy in himself, but certainly had a lot of concepts, a lot of ideas, just hadn't really got to the sort of the multiplication side, or the sort of pushing for more side, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think if we look at it that way, like the good concepts that came from him, and then you take some of the good concepts that came from him and then put it into maybe some things that I learned from my dad or some people growing up, but not only that, and my mom, but then adding mentors to my life, like Grant, like Brandon Dawson, Richie Dolan, Jared Glant, the four guys that I rely on right now for my mentorship. And then taking the bits and pieces of that and putting it together and creating C-Roc. So
What, I mean, do you know what was your coming out of your teens into the workplace? I mean, what was your main drive? Was it the money? Was it the resources? Was it the connections? Significance? What were you seeking at that time?
I think I was seeking excitement. I grew up in a small town in Maryland. It was a kind of boring like country life. I mean, there were some good times and some fun. I just wasn't a country boy. I was a city boy, exciting, like energy kind of person that was in a country world, not by choice. So once I got out of that, then I became a situation where like I have an opportunity to be around people and excitement and maybe I had a little bit of that fear of missing out stuff, and but that's what I forget your question was, but that's basically what it was. Yeah.
No, it makes sense. I mean, in terms then, I mean, with who do you take after your folks? I mean, was it your mother, your father, a mix of both, or where do your
There's
traits come?
definitely a combination.
Hmm.
Definitely a combination. And then I look at the weaknesses that I have and I try to develop those weaknesses and then throw gasoline or actually rocket fuel on my strengths. And so, yeah, there's definitely a combination. And then now the people that I've immersed myself in now, it's more those people.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So you
definitely.
talked there about, really sort of immersing yourself in the world of sales. You're partying hard at night and you're starting to sell during the day. So that world just continued, right?
Yeah, it did until I met my wife. And I was starting to feel in a dark place and I noticed my finances weren't good. I wasn't starting, I was missing bills when they were due. At the age around 24, 25, somewhere in that range. And I was just like, come on, man. The thing is, Pete, I knew I was destined for greatness, man. I just knew that from a young age. And I don't know when I'll get there because no matter what level I'm at, if people think that I'm killing it, I hear that they're like, C-Roc, you're killing it, or man, you're doing great. To me, it's like, I'm never there because I'm going to go to my potential. That's where I want to go. And I don't know where my potential is. So, but I always knew I was destined for more. And I'm like, dude, you're being a loser. Like what I was telling myself this, come on, man, you're better than this. I always have a thing in my head going on. I have a constant battle. I talk to myself a lot. Maybe it's because I felt lonely as a kid being in the situation that I was in, despite having 7 brothers and half brothers and sisters. But I think that I was going through a lot of talk and I was not happy where I was. I knew that. I was anxious. I was depressed. And I knew that I was destined for better. And I had no idea how to do it. That was another problem. Knowledge, know-how. I didn't know how to do it. But I knew I needed to and figure out something. And I was just searching and searching. And finally, like I said, when my wife came into my life and I got committed to having a great relationship and not messing it up, then I started figuring out ways to find the answers that I was looking for.
Was it to say behind every good man there's a great woman?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt, man.
Do you think, I mean, is that just where you were destined to be? I mean, do you see that as destiny? Do you think that is fate, or what way do you see it?
Um, hmm. You know, I guess everything happens for a reason. I think everything's a culmination of your decisions from your past, right? So whatever I was deciding and doing, thinking about and deciding and take action on, that's what I was getting. So if you think about it, you're making a cake and you're putting these ingredients in the cake, whatever you put in there is going to be the kind of cake you get out of it. So I think your thoughts, your words, and your actions all are your ingredients of what you get. And so, yeah, not meant to be kind of thing. It's meant to be because of the ingredients you put in it. That's what I believe.
Yeah, yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. So you meet your wife, or you meet your partner, obviously your girlfriend at that time, and that sort of blossoms on. So what changed, and how did life start to really look different for you at that time?
Well, at first, she was going to college 6 hours away, and I realized something. Like when I was committed to going after her, and when I lock in on something, I usually got it, or I eventually found out that it wasn't really the thing I thought I want. So it's one of the two, and I think that happens to all of us. We get what we go after relentlessly, and we don't get what we stop going after. And I knew that I wanted to marry Jen, so I just I mean I drive 6 hours every week on the weekends to go see her and vice versa. And I would do whatever it took, man. I just had that feeling. So then I started to realize, wait a minute, this commitment to something, if you get committed to something, you can have whatever you want. And so I started to realize that. And then that became powerful for me. And then I started on smaller levels, not like my wife was that's a big level, but on smaller things in work fitness and finances, I just started thinking differently. Hey man, if you want something, you just got to go get it, and you got to be relentless and just keep going and move people out of your way. And then I started coming up with this phrase, remove all obstacles. Find out what your obstacles are, identify them, and just remove them. And that includes people. Sometimes in life, you got to remove people that aren't supporting your dream or encouraging you or helping you get to places. It's nothing wrong with, I say remove them. It's nothing wrong with keeping them around just to help them if they need encouragement or a hand up, but don't enable them. But don't let them stop you from what you want. And that's how it changed.
No, I love that. I mean, it's as you say, is it a version of, your passion, your desire, what you want is so strong that actually the blockages, the things that you don't want fall to the side, or is it you physically got to remove them out of your way?
Both. Some things will just disappear, and then other things you got to really be intentional to get out of the way. Like, for example, here's an example right now. Currently, I'm writing a book called Rocket Fuel, and I got to get it out. I want to get it out to people and get it out in people's hands. And all the other things that I'm doing with the What Are You Made Of movement and my podcast, I cannot let anything get in the way of those things. And also I have obviously my family, and I want to develop my family, but I played golf a lot. And this is just an example. And I love American football, watching it during football season. The weather gets cold. One of the things that got me through the winter times is that football's on Mondays, Thursdays, Saturdays with college, Sundays with pro. And so 4 out of the 7 days of the week, and it's winter and it's cold and it gets dark early, I can watch football. I look forward to it. Well, now that stuff, it's not I'm not taking a lot of action to avoid them. It's just that I'm so focused on everything else. Those things kind of faded away and I have no interest in them. Like I'll watch a little bit of a game, but I'm not interested anymore. I don't care who wins. I don't even care anymore. Golf. I used to play golf 3 times a week. I don't really care anymore. I like to get out. I'll still get out once a month, but it's great. And I hit the ball good and I'm good. And I've had my fill, but it's just not there. So I'm not actually taking action to eliminate those things. They're just kind of fading away. But then there's other things like people that are in my life or that have been in my life that I had to exit because they were just eating at me and eating at me and eating at me. It could be employees. It could be friends, so recently I've cleaned up some things that were in my life that were weighing me down and my team down. And matter of fact, it's not about me all the time. Maybe those people were being weighed down, being around in our environment where they just weren't ready for what we're doing. And we're doing them a favor by removing them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. And I suppose not everyone's on the same path. Not everyone has the same values, wants, beliefs, needs, etc. So and
that's okay. It's nothing personal. I have a couple employees that I had to part ways with, and I like these. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that they weren't ready for what we're doing, and they're not on board with it. And keeping them here was holding us back and causing conflict. And the other thing is, they may not have had the courage to exit. So I have the courage. I got to use that courage to let them go, and it might hurt their feelings. When you let someone go from a job and quote unquote they say fire them. I don't look at it that I'm firing them and take pride in that. I look at it as, listen, you don't have the courage right now. This isn't the right place for you. I know that, and you shouldn't know that. You know that, you just don't have the courage to make the move. And let me help you. And then if they need some, help finding another job, whatever the case is, I don't mind doing that. So there's some examples that I'm going through recently that I just current event share.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Just a bit of a pattern break. I mean, what's your earliest conscious memory anyway?
I would say, I think about this a lot, by the way, because I try to improve my memory by going back and thinking about things like that. And my earliest memory was in a little tiny row house in Pennsylvania when I was born. And I think, I say I don't remember my parents together because I don't, but I remember being in the house that they were together in, if that makes sense. And I remember being in like a playpen or a crib and being scared in a room that I was in by myself. So that's the earliest thing I can remember. And I know I was a youngster. I probably maybe couldn't even walk at that time, but I just remember that feeling of fear for some reason. I don't know why or what, but it's probably a kid just didn't want to, be by himself at that time, but
it's amazing what you remember, right? It's going all the way back. You briefly touched on before. I mean, in terms of religion, spirituality, etc., where do you sit in that whole realm?
Well, I grew up in a Catholic church with my grandfather a lot, going to church with my grandfather. Then my mom would take me to non-denominational Christian churches. And my wife grew up as a Baptist Christian. Now we go to a non-denomination. Well, it's a Baptist church, but it's more laid back. I believe in God. I believe in a creator. I believe in that I was put here for a purpose with a certain potential. And I believe that if I don't serve up to my potential, it's a slap in my creator's face. And that's why one of the motivators that I have every day is to make sure I get up and go after my potential and not let up, because I owe it to him or her or whatever my creator is, right? And but no, I believe also that my body is a vehicle while I'm here, man. So I need to take care of this vehicle. I need to take care of everything, every part of it. And for people that don't believe in a creator or God, that's on you to believe. I'm not pushing my beliefs on you. However, there's certain things that I've seen that have helped me believe what I'm believing right now. And I believe that also there's my spirit that's inside of me. My body physically is limited. Obviously, we're limited. Like I can't fly with just me, just like this, right? I can get in a plane and fly, but spiritually, I feel like I'm unlimited in potential and power, and I'm just encouraged every day to continue to use that, and in combination with my body and the life that it's given me to create big things and inspire other people to create big things.
Makes a lot of sense. Are you clear in your purpose, your gift or your masterpiece? Are you clear in that yet?
Yeah, I'm clear on it. But the other thing is that I think that there's other things that are coming into play as I do it, and it's always evolving, So I'm not going to be closed off to letting it evolve into bigger things. Right now, it's to really help people understand that they can be unstoppable if they just proactively prepare themselves to convert setbacks into rocket fuel. And that's what it is right now. And, I have other businesses. I have 4 or 5 other businesses right now that I'm doing. I'm writing a book as well and doing a lot of things. But you know what, a lot of times people come on podcasts and they talk about how much they know and all these different things. Let me tell you something I'm struggling with right now. And then I'm going to work on because I'm clear on it. I'm struggling right now with trying to think that I need to know a whole bunch of things, a whole bunch of different topics. And in talking to one of my mentors the other day, I came to realize, you know what? No, you don't need to do that. Why don't you read a lot of books, read a lot of different topics and subjects, but while you're doing that, take that one focus that you want to do, which to me right now is proactive resiliency and becoming unstoppable. And when you're reading these things or watching videos or content, be cognizant of what you're trying to focus on. Now, still pick up other things as you're doing it, but really laser focus on, hey, what can I find out of this that contributes to what my main thing is right now?
That makes a lot of sense. When you say, I mean, with proactive resiliency, I mean, who can you serve best out of all that?
Well, I think that to start, I think it's important I have a mortgage company, a home loan company that I run a division of, a large division in the United States, Nations Lending, it's called. And I think right now it's important to do this for my team. And then beyond that, in our industry, staying within our industry for loan officers that are doing this same thing and having struggles with, sometimes when you do a loan, you have to get an appraisal done on the house to find out how much the house is worth. Let's say that appraisal comes in low. Sometimes that happens, and then a real estate agent blames the loan officer, and then the loan officer doesn't get their commission because the thing doesn't go, and he's getting blamed, and he's like, oh man, it's a setback, and it's the end of the world, and that whole day is ruined, and maybe a week is ruined. When, if you really understand what the concept of rocket fuel is, okay, wait a minute, this is just a setback. Let me see how I can convert this into fuel for myself and the agent and the buyer and whoever else is involved. Let me be that person while they're all stuck and paralyzed and set back. Let me blow out of this, blow past my competition and lift the others around me up. So right now, directly, I want to work with the loan officers that are in my group and then the ones beyond. And then we're going to, obviously, this thing will spread out worldwide as a movement. There's no doubt about it.
At what point did you feel unstoppable? What's the point when you chose it, you owned it, and you were ready to move on?
When I met Grant Cardone and understood that his concept of 10X mixed with the rocket fuel concept that I have, it's just, there's nothing that can stop you. And the only thing that stops me is if somebody kills me, I die, right? Then my spirit's still unlimited. To me, I'm a spiritual being. I'm going to go someplace and do something. So that's the way I think. I don't know if it's right or wrong for people. It doesn't matter to me. It's what makes me. And while I'm here in this body, I'm going to just go hard and become just, so some people will say, well, he'll be stopped. Watch something happen to him. He's going to go too hard or somebody's going to do something to him. Yeah, my body may be stopped, but I ain't stopped. C-Roc's not stopping. So that's the thing. And the other thing about this, Pete, being unstoppable, if you create a big enough legacy and a powerful enough legacy, even after your body's gone, your spirit still lives on. And that's why George passing, I was saying this when we got cut off, George passing, his spirit, 2 weeks after he passed away, I felt something. And my brother had the same experience where we felt something come into us. And so that's George's spirit living on because he left a legacy in us. And it's part of my energy and passion now. So that's the answer to that question, brother.
Having that, I mean, is that something that's come with age, that sort of spiritual growth, that sort of acceptance in who you are? And, you know, are you your true self now? Do you think, you know, are you where you're supposed to be, and are you your true self?
Yeah, I think I am where I'm supposed to be right now based on my decisions and actions from the past, but I'm not sitting still and I'm not going to stay stagnant. I mean, I'm looking to evolve as I go forward.
Yeah. What are you capable of then? What's your potential? What's your opportunity out there?
Whatever I set my mind on, truthfully, whatever I set my mind on, I will achieve. And it's something that if I want to do it, you got to want to do it because you're going to have to go through the things the difficulties and the setbacks and be able to convert those things. In order to convert these things, it's not something where you just make a decision, I'm going to convert these things. The rocket fuel concept also has to do with being prepared, being proactive and putting yourself in a position, a shape, and the abilities and knowledge to be able to do it. Like if you take, let's say you're a car and you don't change your oil and you don't put the right fuel in it and you don't change the tires, you don't check the alignment, but you want to go fast, you're going to have problems. The wheels are going to come off. You're going to wreck. You're going to have problems. You're not going to run efficiently. So rocket fuel concept, it's just about the decision, as much about the decision to do it as it is to prepare for it as well. And so that's what it comes down to.
Talk to me about the rocket concept. I mean, what is it about that that's really sort of resonated with you, and where was it born?
I think that I was interviewing Grant Cardone on my podcast and was talking about becoming unstoppable and indestructible. And what's that take to really get into, we were talking about orbit at that time, but really space, away from gravitational pull. What would that take? And he said, I don't think you're ready for the answer for that. I don't think a lot of people, well, you may be ready, C-Roc, but a lot of people aren't ready for that answer. You know, they're not ready for what I'm about to tell them. But, and then I started thinking to myself, well, what could get us there? Like what's stopping us? And then I figured out what was stopping us is all the discouraging people, the setbacks, the letdowns, the difficulties, the stuff that we go through, the broken mindsets. Okay, well, let's figure out not just a way to eliminate them, because that's not big enough for me and Grant either. Let's freaking turn them into fuel, man. And so that's where it came from. And that's where this concept, but I was already living on this idea of like, what are you made of, man? You're built for this. You got this. You can get through anything. You've already gotten through the stuff you've gotten in the past. But that concept really came into play earlier this year, actually, when I really labeled it and figured out the symbolism of it.
What really changed for you then? So, you know, you've had sort of the time you meet your wife, you know, and really things, you know, sort of grow and really evolve for you up to the point, you know, so you're working in that way, and then, you know, meeting Grant and going the next level. Was it a step up for you? Was it a change of pace, change of attitude?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think it's just actually added fuel to my attitude, and then also validity. And I apologize. There's a lot going on in my house right now. If you can hear that, that's some leaf blowers, because look, the leaves are falling in the United States right now. We have family coming over for Thanksgiving. We want to make sure the yard looks good. I told them to come out. I didn't know they were going to come out right now. I apologize. But guys, I'll make sure I talk loud enough. So the thing is it added power and validity. Validity for me, I thought always had this energy, and I didn't think I was going to be accepted for it. And Grant and all this gave me the validity to just let it out, uncage the animal. So
why is that? Is that when you run with a different tribe, you sort of hang around with different people, you hear a different mindset? Is that the difference?
Yeah, I think it's being around them. And hey, let's pause for a second, okay? So being around people definitely grows you, because like when you're in a big fish, they say a big fish in a small pond, you're just comparing yourself to those people. And as long as you stay above those fish, you're good, man. You're good. And you get complacent and lazy. And so you're not helping the other people either because you're not growing and expanding. So those people stay at their level. So to me, being around people that think big, like I like to take trips to Miami. And when I take trips to Miami, I see big buildings, big boats, big cars, nice cars, whatever. And I see different people. When I go to Vegas or Los Angeles or New York, I see this different stuff and it just opens my eyes and my mind. And then I hang around people that are bigger than me. Matter of fact, Pete, some people say, well, how do you do that? Like those people don't have time for you. I pay. I'll just give you guys a little insight here. I've spent probably close to $300,000 in the last year and a half being around people that are bigger than me. You pay for access. And it sounds crazy, but time is valuable. And the more successful you get, the less time that you have and the more valuable your time becomes. And if you want to be like, you be around those kind of people, you got to pay it. As simple as that. Then you develop relationships and then eventually they want to hang out with you. It's worth their time. They realize that it's worth their time to hang out with you. And then you become friends or have a relationship that it's not something you got to pay for, but it's not about buying friends. It's about buying time. So absolutely 100% being around bigger people.
And that is right. That's an investment because similar. I met Grant last year myself, and it was, there was a price to pay for the seat in the room. It was a small mastermind, and you get to do that, but it is right. You get to influence what's around you, whether that be money, whether that be time, connections, whatever. It's just being relentless, being unstoppable, taking out the stops.
And I can tell you right now, looking back, I mean, somebody told me they spent $300,000 to be around some people. I'd have thought, man, what an idiot. Are you serious? And that's because I had a small mind when I was thinking that. Didn't understand it. And when you really want something, you start finding the way to get it. And you're like, all right, this is going to cost 50 grand. All right, where can I get 50 grand? Now, if you don't really want it, you're not going to figure it out. But if you really want something, you figure out how to get that money. Trust me. You want something bad enough, you figure out how to get it. And I can tell you that every time I've done that, and I'm not talking, remember, we're talking about the good pleasures and the good pains. I'm not talking about going out and buying a bag of drugs and spending the money on that because you really want it. Matter of fact, you'll do that too. If you've seen drug addicts get money, they do whatever it takes to get the money to get their drug. But I'm talking about if you switch that same mindset onto positive things that can help you develop and grow and flourish, you find the money. But I think it also has to do with making sure you're committed and wanting to it. Because if you're a drug addict or an alcoholic, you find the money for your drugs and alcohol. You figure it out because you're committed to it, right? Psychologically, the addiction gets you. So, yeah, man. I mean, that's the way it is.
Where are you going to? What's on your bucket list, on the big love list? What's out there for?
Well, I think that how can I blow up a podcast? Like I could do more days. I can get bigger guests. I can maybe get the set maybe looking a little bit more professional. But at the end of the day, really, what does it matter? What matters is how can I impact more people? And what's the way to do that? Television. So Grant's got on television somehow, by the way, now. I don't know if you heard, but he's going to be on Undercover Billionaire season 2, January 6th. Check that out. Because he's going to go to zero and see what it's like for him to be more like us at this point and see if he can do it again. But getting on TV, man, that's the game. The next game probably is getting on TV somehow, whether it's a show, being on other people's shows. I don't know, man. And I think this Rocket Fuel book would be a good movie. So maybe, making connections in Hollywood and getting with the right people to get my book into a screenplay and then make a movie out of it.
What's your main purpose of, what do you want to get out of the book when someone picks it up and reads it and goes through it? What do you want them to leave with?
Well, by the way, Pete, that when I just say something about my story and turn it into a movie, some people might think like, who? Because I think this in my mind sometimes, like, who do you think you are? Right? That's that limiting belief that we have. And then hear me that your story ain't that. Come on, man, really? I got a better story than you. That's those people those are negative suppressors that I talk about. And I want to share this because I have them too. I have them personally that I think about sometimes, like, nobody cares about your story, man. Like, what do you think you're so like special? Well, what changes that is just the attitude that I am special in a good way, not a special. I am special. Your story's special. Everybody's story, but that's what changes it and gives you validity, is just knowing and thinking that it is. And so if I think my story could be a movie and a screenplay, it will be at some point. I may have to go through 1,000 no's, 2,000 no's, but somebody, if I stay relentless and keep going after it, somebody's going to pick it up and put it out. And it may not be the greatest movie in the world. It may just end up on Netflix, or it might just end up on a computer, like a website somewhere. But at the end of the day, if you don't quit and you keep going, it'll happen. And it's just a matter of how far you're going to take it and how much fuel you need to get there. Because that's why it's good to have, there's unlimited amount of negativeness out there. And so there's an unlimited amount of fuel if you know how to convert it. So you need that to keep going as far as you need to go. So my book is called Rocket Fuel. It's about stories in my life. I shared some of them with you today, but I go into detail with some stories and what shaped me and how I've used those things and converted those things into fuel for my success. And then also the people, how I've impacted others with it and been able to bring people along and change other people's lives with it as well. And I talk about some of my mentors in there. I talk about what they've meant to me and how I've implemented their things. So I don't basically just repeat what they say all the time. I take it and show you how I've implemented it in my life and the difference that it's made.
What's one of the key things you've changed, you've made then, putting it out there, you
know? From the start, from when I started putting it out there till now?
Yeah.
Well, first, I think that when I heard Pete Vargas tell his story on the GrowthCon stage, and he was telling a story about his father, and then he showed how that story hits people in the heart, and then how you can deliver content to people and they'll really accept the content at that point because you've really connected with them with the heart. And I said to myself, wait a minute, I got a story about my dad and I never shared it with anyone. And I've been driving off of this force, this thing for my whole life. And if Pete can do it, I know I can do it. And so I love Pete to death by any means. One thing I want to make clear too, like I'll look at people, and might come off the wrong way, but it is what it is. I look at Pete and I love Pete to death. Like I said, he's doing great things. I just look at myself and say, wait a minute, I can do that. And I'm not going to stop there. Does that make sense? Yeah. Grant's a great example. Awesome guy, top of his game, right? Maybe he's not even at the top of his game. He's probably got further to go. And he's my mentor, but I always looked, okay, well, I'm going to get to where he is and then I'm going to go beyond. And I think that's important because you don't want to limit yourself. Because if you're aiming for somebody, you're going to come up short of them. But if you're aiming beyond them, you're going to get beyond them. And so that's a little insight of how I think.
Do people get you in general? I mean, does it, because I get it. I get the mindset but imagine some people are going to be looking slightly, looking at you sideways, right?
I want them to, because when I'm doing that and I see that, that means I'm on the right track. So absolutely people can't handle me. Some people take me the wrong way. Some people are maybe repelled by it, and that's okay. I mean, when I tell somebody something, if they are repelled by it or they're not encouraging or what have you, then that just is a sign to turn the stuff into fuel, and then also make sure you keep those kind of people away from you. So if they look at you sideways, then they're not the type that you want to be around right now. Then what happens, Pete, I've done this before and I've seen this cycle where you go out and then you just go after it anyway. And then all of a sudden they come back around and they're like, man, can I ask you some questions? Oh man, I watched your journey from the beginning. I knew you were going to do it, man. I knew you were going to be successful. And I've seen this. I heard people say that cycle before. I think they call it the hater cycle or something. I've heard people say that before. And then I started witnessing it. And it happened in my family, like I just told you, being that only grandson first, and then watching the people have problems with it. And then later on they come back and they're like, I'm so proud of you. I knew you were going to be special. I knew it. And that's the first time I witnessed it. So yeah, people can't, but also when people are down and out and depressing and discouraging and hateful, people also look at those people sideways too, right? So I guess it's pick your sideways.
No, it makes sense because some days it's everyone's for you, and other days everyone's against you. But keep your vision, set your rocket, set your trajectory, and off you go. You gotta be strong in that, right? Because there's enough people out there that have never flown a rocket, but they still got an opinion, right?
Right. I mean, everybody's got an opinion, man. We know what they say about opinions. I'll leave that one alone.
What, in terms of, where you go? Do you, if forward planning, do you set yourself plans? Do you set yourself big goals? What way do you work?
I do. I have visions, and then I'll share them with my implementation team, I call them. And sometimes I feel like I have to get involved with the implementation too, because it's not going where I want to. And that's on me. I take responsibility. Maybe I don't elaborate enough on my vision and share the vision clear enough with people. And you know what? I don't necessarily set out long-term goals as far as 5 and 10 years. You know why? And I'm not saying this is right, by the way. Everything I say today is not necessarily right. I'm just telling you way I think. I think that would put limitations on how fast I can accomplish something. And so I act with urgency on my actions and putting things into play and going after it, but I act with patience, begrudgingly, on the results. But I don't like to do the 5-10 year thing because of the fact that, what if I could do it faster? So, and that might not be the right thing, man. I mean, that might be some psychologist or performance person might say, you know what, that's wrong. You're just saying that because you don't want to take the time to plan it out. I don't know, but that's just the way I do it.
What are your core values then? What really sort of are non-negotiables for you?
Well, dependability, being able to be counted on is very important to me. The being a role model and being an impact on people keeps me making sure that I do what I say I'm going to do. And also the follow through and holding people accountable. Like if somebody gives me permission to hold them accountable, my job is to make sure that happens or I'm letting them down. So dependability and reliability is very important to me as far as the core value goes. The other thing is always never being happy and settling with any accomplishment that I have. Like understanding that my potential is unlimited as far as I know. I mean, I'm sure there's a ceiling at some point. I don't know where it is, and I'm not going to know when I hit it. But just being relentless with that and going after it and not being unstoppable. Mm-hmm. Bottom line.
In terms of self-care, I mean, do you find you have to manage yourself and listen, it's getting the right balance, right? Do you monitor that, or how do you know?
Yeah. So I work out a lot. I take care of my body, my diet. I'm very good with my diet, and I still have a little bit of time where I make sure that I get to taste sweets, you know what I mean? And have a beer once in a while and a drink once in a while. Like I had a 7-day vacation 2 weeks ago. I drank habanero margaritas every day and I enjoyed myself. And then I came back and I got right back on my routine. Taking care of your body is important. You cannot take on the world if you can't take care of your body. Bottom line, that's part of being proactive with the rocket fuel concept and being prepared to convert things into rocket fuel. You got to be in tip-top shape. Mentally, you got to be in tip-top shape. Your mindset can't be broken. Your knowledge, you got to be constantly learning. So I'm very conscious of these things, and I'm conscious. I have books all over the place that I'm involved with. I don't read one book. I read bits and pieces of other ones as I go through. 10 pages a day in the morning, 10 pages at night. That's like 600 pages a month that allows you to get through. And I mix it up because I'm looking for those. Remember, now I'm narrowing in on that one thing, like proactive resiliency. Let's focus on that. And then with the family, this is the biggest thing for me is I feel like I'm out there trying to help the world. And at times I feel like I reject my kids. And so I'm always conscious of that. Okay, I need to spend more time with my daughter. I need to spend more time with my son, my wife, and making sure that gets taken care of as well. And they'll let me know when I'm not, which is a good thing.
I was going to say, what do you want to provide, for your kids, your family, especially given your own sort of upbringing and what you've shared kind of with us today?
Role model, man, being a role model of exactly how I want to show them the right way to do things and show them how to not do certain things and show them examples of that through other people. That's my biggest thing is when I wake up, how can I be the most valuable person? And everything that I do, I understand that their eyes are on me.
Mm-hmm. And what about legacy? Are you at that stage yet?
Of course. I think everybody should be. I messed up early on and wasn't, look, there's people that are 18 that have a legacy, so yeah, I mean, I'm at the stage, I'm aware of it, and I'm excited about it. Like it excites me to be like, man, like what could my legacy be? Like, what could people think about me? You hear the name Rockefeller, you hear the name Churchill, you hear the name, I don't know, in Ireland, what's a good name in Ireland? Rory McIlroy.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, but you hear these names and it's not an ego thing. It's just like, Remember, how can you live on? How can you be indestructible? Right. And a way to do that is having a legacy. So absolutely, that's part of what I'm doing. And it excites me, man.
The opportunity is huge, right? I mean, because I think we're going to talk about having like a 60-year business plan or something at one point. I don't know if that's still the case, but
yeah, I've heard him say that too. Yeah.
you know,
I want to be, look, by the way, too, like for me to give back, besides money's one thing, right? But to give back to my mentors that have helped me and have felt like they were heroes to me, to give me hope, and to give back to them. I want to make them look good by being a case study for them. So for me, like in my head, it's like, I want to show people what Grant's stuff actually is capable of, because a lot of people have had success with it. And there's a lot of mentors that have provided their mentees with success. But my thing in my head is, how far can we take this thing with a mentee? Like, how can we take somebody that Grant actually got a hold of somehow, unintentionally, directly to me? Like I fell into it, right? And how far can it go? And then it becomes about, some people say, well, man, when are you going to like get away from that? Like, when are you going to start just promoting C-Roc and what are you made of and all that? And I don't believe I need to do that. I believe it can be worked together. I believe that in cohesion but that's the thing for me, is like, I want to see how far I can take it for his purpose too.
I like it. And so you put in there, really in terms of out there on the bucket list, the love list, your TV channel, book. Is there multiple books in you, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I already have another one I'm working on. So this one's coming out. I have 2 chapters really that I'm not quite happy with, that I want to wrap up. And then it's going to edit, and then it'll be out in February. Pre-sale right now, by the way, MikeCroc.com, Mike C-Roc with no K, MikeCroc.com/book. The next one is already put together as far as chapters. The title's already put there, and I just got to fill it up now. And I'm fired up about this one because it ties in really good with the rocket fuel, and it's titled a word that I use a lot with rocket fuel, but I'm not going to get into exactly what it is yet.
That's all right. I noticed there, I mean, a lot of your language, you come across quite kinesthetic. So a lot of doing language, a lot of, occasionally when you're talking about other people, you use visual words, but kinesthetic mainly. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because I realized that it takes action to really do things. The only thing from when you have your goal to the final result in between there is the level of action you take. And so that, to me, I understand that. And I gotta be moving. You'll never see me sitting on a couch relaxing, maybe for 5 minutes, 10 minutes at tops. When we're at the vacation, the holiday that we took in Mexico, I can't sit down for long by the beach or by the pool. Like I'm moving. I gotta create and build and change things. That's like something that just, because you know what I think, Peter, is if I get bored and complacent, bad things happen. That's what's in my mind.
Makes sense. What is a guilty pleasure for you, or a guilt-free guilty pleasure, let's say?
I like to have a beer once in a while, and I enjoy having a beer, and I think I like gambling, but only on things I feel like I have control in, like golf. I like to gamble when I play golf. I'm not a big gambler in like the casino, where I feel like I don't have control. But really, what pleases me now is advancement in my mission right now. I'm so focused on where I want to go with this, that every time I make incremental advances, that's what my pleasure comes from. And if I'm not, that's where my pain is coming from. And so, I probably should do more to have some more guilty pleasures. But I'm just not right now. And it's probably a good thing.
No, that's that. Well, it's the focused determination and being sort of relentless. I mean, have you retirement way out there? I mean, is it something you see, or do you see yourself forever working, or what's your overall long-term mission?
Well, I have this mortgage company, and I think the mortgage company is something that I may at some point retire from. But that's not, but the other stuff that I do, I don't feel like it's work. So it's like just like the life I'm living. And so I don't think I'm going to stop doing that stuff, man. I mean, I'll just try to figure out how to way to impact somehow, some way, create somehow, some way. I mean, that's just what I feel. I can't see myself golfing every day and being by the beach every day and just waking up and just sitting in a house, or I just can't see myself doing that, man.
No,
They're going to have to hold me down. Like, they're going to have to be like, you can't go today. You got to sit in this chair. This reclining chair is yours today. Sit there. We'll strap you in if we have to, because I just don't see myself doing that.
There's so many entrepreneurs, they attempt to retire at some point, and then it just goes so badly wrong. They just jump straight back into a new business or something. You know, they're unstoppable. What then? I mean, if we were to summarize, you know, with one or two words of what your fire in the belly is, what would you say it is?
I want to make people feel like my heroes have made me feel. So the feeling that I got when I was in the darkest place and my hero came out, my wife, right? George, Grant Cardone, you know, those feelings that I had at those pivotal moments in my life when I was dark, and that gave me hope. I want to make people feel that way. I want to return that feeling to hundreds of millions of people. Awesome.
I love it. Give us a shout out again on the website where people can go and pre-order your book as well.
Mike C-Roc with no K, C-R-O-C, MikeCroc.com/book, MikeCroc.com/book.
Love it. Closing message?
First of all, thank you very much for having me, Pete. I really enjoyed this interview. I've done probably 300 this year, and yours is one of my favorites, and I'm not just saying that. You know, it was, we went deep, great questions, and guys, just understand that nothing can stop you if you just turn everything that stops you into rocket fuel.
Love it. Mike, till the next time.